This might indicate that the president is planning to put the White House up for sale when he leaves peacefully in 2028, with the new ballroom intended to boost the purchase price. Trump would be the first president to flip the White House, though Richard Nixon briefly considered it before resigning in disgrace in 1974. Norman Chad. Welcome to Gambling Mad with Norman Chad. I am Norman Chad. Coming up on the program today, how bad is the NBA gambling scandal? How bad are my NFL picks? How good is Shohei Ohtani? And how good did bananas used to be? Gambling Mad, as always, brought to you by Fritos, picked fresh off of Central California trees every morning, delivered directly to your local retailer every afternoon. And by the refreshing taste of Fresca. Fritos and Fresca, it's a meal. Have we reached gamble again? Have we reached a bet-pocalypse? I'm not sure, but if I'm using words I have never heard of, something smells awful across Sports Nation. The latest NBA gambling scandal could be a one-off, or it could be the tip of a very, 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 very large iceberg. I think the iceberg could be a 10.5-point favorite here. So we have NBA player Terry Rozier and former NBA player and assistant coach Damon Jones facing federal charges in regarding to a scheme to fix bets on NBA games. And we have Portland Trail Blazers coach Chauncey Billups charged in a separate indictment linking him to a mafia scheme to fix poker games. We'll get to that later. Plus, authorities are looking to the possibility that Billups or others with ties to the Trailblazers would tip off gamblers when players would sit out, and the Trailblazers likely would be losing that evening. There's a lot of stuff here, and trust me, none of it is good. Let's start with this NBA tradition of tanking, which is bad all on its own before the gambling element even enters the equation. Some of you may recall the 76ers, the Philadelphia 76ers, famously executed their process several years ago. They said, trust the process. This was a several-year project in which they would lose purposely so they can accumulate as many high draft picks as possible. And then with all those high draft picks, they'd be really good and they'd be winning NBA title after NBA title. How'd that work out for them? But this is an idea of which, and it's very common in the NBA, and it's a problem, where teams will purposely lose games to improve their lottery position. We call it tanking. Do you think Beyonce or Bruce Springsteen has ever tanked a concert? Intentionally put on a bad performance for whatever reason? It's bad for business. It's bad for your fan base. So many implications of tanking. I mean, just think if you're a season ticket holder, you're being told, hey, even though you're paying premium to watch these games, we're going to lose on purpose. There's going to be bad games for the next year, 2 or 3. Keep paying us, and then down the road, there'll be a payoff. Or if you are watching that team on the road and you come to see your one NBA game a year and one of the two teams decides really not to show up. They decide we're not even going to try to win tonight because we're tanking. What type of value is that for the NBA fan? It is just horrendous. It might look good in the big picture for a franchise that we got to get worse before we got better, but it is not in the best interests of the game to do that. And fans are really getting onto the short end of this stick when teams tank. So what we're talking about here is if the Trailblazers know they want to lose a game to get a better draft position, and someone tells gamblers that fact, well, I'd say we have multiple integrity of the game issues. This brings us to what Damon Jones allegedly did. Now, when he was with the Lakers as an assistant, he found out late, let's say in the afternoon, that LeBron James was going to be a late scratch. He had an injury. He would inform gamblers to bet against the Lakers, and particularly if they could, to bet on them before this information got released, because once it comes out that LeBron is injured, the point spread will change a lot. So he would allegedly inform gamblers that LeBron was not going to be playing before anybody else knew. And of course, this eventually would affect the point spread. Anyway, this is the absolute equivalent of insider trading, a common Wall Street practice, which is seldom flagged. So why not allow it in the NBA as well? Which brings us to the Miami Heat's Terry Rozier. He allegedly would inform gambling associates that he would purposely underperform so they could bet the under on various prop bets regarding how many points or how many rebounds he would have in a game. In this situation, Rozier could execute this on his end in a couple of ways. He could just play terribly in a game, and we've now seen some videotape of the games in which supposedly this activity was going on where he did indeed play terribly, or he could feign an injury and just sit out the rest of the game. It's easy money for a gambler if they know that information. That's why these prop bets are dangerous. Well, here's a simple proposition for you. When the integrity of the contests are threatened, the whole shebang could be brought down. If you no longer trust what you are seeing to be on the up and up, you might take your entertainment dollars elsewhere. Now, it's unlikely that the NBA or another professional league could crumble under the weight of gambling improprieties, but it could happen. Sports in America is very resilient, though, and I can give you one example, and it's all you need to know. Let me remind the youngsters out there that in 1919, the World Series was fixed. It was known as the Black Sox scandal, in which several White Sox players took payments from syndicate gamblers to throw games. I remember this well because naturally I bet on the White Sox in that series. Anyway, the scheme was uncovered. Huge scandal, huge controversy, the blackest eye possible for Major League Baseball. The friggin' World Series was rigged. And what happened? Well, baseball has survived and thrived for more than 100 years since. Let's turn our attention to Chauncey, Billups, and poker. First, let me give you some background. There's a common thing in online poker games with online sites where the site or a guy running a game, he'll hire somebody, let's just call him an agent, and this agent will recruit players to the game. It's pretty simple. I recruit somebody to come play poker and I get a commission. And then the more this person plays, the more I make because the site is making money off the rake in the game. So, it's perfectly legal. And that's what a lot of people use. They use an agent to attract other players. Well, in live poker private games, there's a version of this, particularly in high stakes games. Hosts will find what they call face cards. These are well-known celebrities whose presence draws well-heeled recreational players to the fray. A businessman with a lot of money is more likely to part with some of that money if they know they're going to be in the company of a famous athlete or a famous actor. So, Chauncey Billups supposedly played in these games. They were in New York, they were in Las Vegas, they were in Miami, they were in Los Angeles. And as an NBA coach and basketball Hall of Famer, he was one of the attractions. No real problem there necessarily. But when Chauncey was bringing in big money to join the game, did he know that the game was actually rigged? Did he know that through an elaborate cheating scheme, the rich business people joining the game were guaranteed to lose? And finally, did he know that these games were mostly organized by the mob? Yeah, that mob. Remember? Do you remember the 5 crime families based in New York? They are still around, and trust me, these are families I still would not invite over for Thanksgiving dinner. But just ask yourself, would an NBA player or coach knowingly get into bed with the mafia? I wouldn't think so, unless the mob boss was really, really good looking. There's a lot of stuff going on in the NBA. What we've got to ask ourselves is, are these just one-offs? These are a lot of one-offs. Is this just a one-off here and there? Or is this a lot of times off? And I got a feeling that we're going to find out that this is a lot of times off and it could be happening again in the future. Okay, folks, in the light of all the nefarious activity surrounding sports gambling of late, what are the chances the NCAA would announce that it has lifted its ban on college athletes betting on professional sports? I mean, they just did it. Great timing. Okay, now don't get me wrong. College athletes still cannot wager on any college sport. But as of November 1, if they are of legal age and they use a legal sports book, college jocks can fire away on the NFL every weekend and on everything else every weeknight. Okay, let's dial back for a moment. I have talked a lot in recent weeks about the dangers of individual player prop bets. It's actually somewhat hard to fix a game. You generally need several participants involved, but it is somewhat easy to fix a player prop bet because you only need one player. Let me give you a scenario that is not all that fantastical. Let's say a pro athlete, let's say an NBA player goes to Las Vegas for the weekend. He's playing, high rolling on blackjack. And over the course of a night or the weekend, he's got a credit line and you can lose $250,000, $500,000, $1 million playing over the weekend. All right. Now, somebody at the casino may know this and come to that player and tell them, hey, I can take care of your marker if you can just do one thing for me. Make sure your team doesn't win by more than 10 points on Friday night. Or there could have been another high roller, another player who was witnessing this NBA athlete losing all this money. And they come to him afterwards and go, hey, if you don't want to pay that off, I'll pay that off for you if you just do one thing for me. Make sure you don't get more than 6 rebounds on Friday night. This is not that fantastical of a scenario. Now, as I've discussed previously, college athletes remain more vulnerable targets for this. Many are not paid that well, even with the new NIL money. So again, just imagine a college or football or basketball player now can run up a debt betting professional sports. And once again, someone comes to them and tells them, we can help you forgive that debt, just wipe it out if you just do one thing for me. This is a recipe for disaster. And by the way, if you want to know such a long time ago how somebody was really smart about this and put it into a Hollywood movie, back in 1968, the original The Gambler, not the Kenny Rogers The Gambler, not the Marky Mark Gambler. The Gambler with James Caan, 1968, written and directed by James Toback, has this exact scenario go on where a really smart college basketball player at a small and smart school decides that, hey, yeah, I'll take the money one time and then maybe another time. It's been around for a long time. On our last Gambling Mad, we spoke of the burgeoning predictions market, a thinly veiled gambling exercise in which investors can buy and sell shares on a variety of future outcomes in real-life events. As we talked about, these platforms, such as Polymarket and Kalshi, quickly discovered the lure of predicting sporting outcomes, also known as sports betting, and well, lo and behold, trading on weekend football became 80% or more of their entire market. I am shocked to find gambling going on in there. Many state regulators will be trying to shut down these prediction markets, particularly in those places like California where sports betting is prohibited. Anyway, I wanted to bring up a couple of other danger signs of these prediction markets. As I mentioned earlier, online poker sites will hire people who get paid for every player they bring to the site. The more the player plays, the bigger the payday for an agent who brings them in. In what I would term a somewhat, cynical move, Kalshi is trying to execute a similar recruitment system. Kalshi is combing our nation's college campuses to hire ambassadors, students who would be charged with bringing other students into the Kalshi predictions market family. Get them young and get them fresh is what I always say. inoculate these newly minted almost adults with the gambling habit as early as possible. They're a bit too young to have real mature judgment in these matters, so maybe we can hook them and reel them in. Now, that is actually probably good business in our teeming world of capitalism, so I can't complain too much. I can't say it's really good for society if all of a sudden, again, teenagers and people 20 and 21 are starting to gamble a lot and lose a lot. But it's within the law, I guess. But here's what I will complain about. The real world events that prediction market players can gamble on. If it is something like, just say, a weather pattern, say whether or not the high temperature in Phoenix, Arizona is going to be 120 degrees before the end of the year, that's something no one can influence. And stuff like that comes up in the predictions markets. Or if you're doing, maybe the box office gross of a movie, its opening weekend, deciding if it's over or under a certain number. Again, that's an item that cannot be easily adjusted by outside forces. But too many of these predictive outcome subjects of interest can be affected by an individual or by some outside party. Everything from election results, for instance, polling, the duration of the U.S. government shutdown, even if China will invade Taiwan by the end of 2025. You can bet on will the S&P 500 index closing price be higher or lower than the previous day's close? By what date will Taylor Swift announce her pregnancy? Oh, wait a second. Okay. On that one, I doubt you could pay Taylor Swift enough to get knocked up on a certain night, but I wouldn't put it past Travis Kelce to do a little shimmy shamming in this regard. Anyway, we again are looking at a recipe for disaster on some of these events. Let me give you a simple one. They'll be betting on the Academy Awards, which used to be, there's always been betting on that outside of the U.S. It's not allowed in the U.S. So say, what film will win the Oscar for Best Movie in 2026? So after the nominations come out, do you think it's inconceivable? Do you think it's implausible that someone could access inside information before the award is announced? Where there is a will, there is a way. By the way, on a personal note, if any of you are considering putting down a Ben Franklin or two on whether I will get to under 190 pounds by Christmas, I would have to advise a wager on the over. That could show up on Kelsey. My weight. President Trump's 90,000 square foot ballroom to replace the east wing of the White House, estimated to cost between $300 million and whatever figure he feels like making up on a particular day, is now under construction. Amidst the brouhaha surrounding this project, I think many people are overlooking one or two key points here. Okay. I think this might indicate more than ever that Trump plans to stay in the White House for a somewhat unconstitutional third term in 2028. I mean, why would he be building an addition to his current home for a would-be successor in 3 years? He wants to have the benefit of that shindigs, and he can do the dance and everything. All right. Or on the other hand, this might indicate that the president is planning to put the White House up for sale when he leaves peacefully in 2028, with the new ballroom intended to boost the purchase price. Trump would be the first president to flip the White House, though Richard Nixon briefly considered it before resigning in disgrace in 1974. Degen's gonna degen. Strap it in, ladies and gentlemen. A Las Vegas poker player named Bing Du has been accused of running an illegal brothel out of her home in the Spring Valley neighborhood and laundering money from the operation. Okay, I want you to pay close attention now to what I'm about to say. Police became suspicious when they found bedrooms in the home with numbers on their doors. I just get a kick out of that. Okay, now when police surveilled the property connected to Du, they also found multiple mattresses in each room, business cards with the line "Asian beauties for discreet gentlemen," large amounts of used condoms and condom wrappers in the trash, and quote unquote, other items suggesting the residence was operating as an illegal brothel. Not sure what else you would need to see to realize it's operating as an illegal brothel. But if I can just jump in here, I believe another telltale sign would have been the number of mostly unclothed individuals that they witnessed conducting sexual acts on those mattresses. Degen's gonna degen. Time for NFL picks, also known as I am the stupidest man in America. Every week, every single week we have done the picks this year, I have gone 2-3. Do you know what happens to you if you go 2-3 every week for the rest of your life? You are broke, and I cannot afford to be broke. I need to eat at least twice a day. Plus, I swear, Tony and Blue each eats 4 and 5 times a day. I have gone 2-3 so often that I believe it's time for me to wear essentially the scarlet A of shame. Okay? I've got to mark myself lousy. Just like the old scarlet A on your chest. Okay? I believe it's time for me to let everybody become aware of my miserable mediocrity. So I'm going to walk around 2-3 until I can prove otherwise. Here we go. 2 and 3. See? Okay. Not going to lose it. I got to go better than 2-3 before I lose this. By the way, just in case you were wondering, last week I was 2-3, and I am now 10-15 against the spread for the season. Panthers at Packers. The Panthers were crushed by the Bills last week. The Packers crushed the Steelers last week. Thus, by all means of logic, the Packers should crush the Panthers this week. But folks, logic is a river in Egypt. Actually, I might have that one wrong. But the L in NFL does not stand for logic. There is nothing logical about the NFL. So on any given Sunday, the Packers can be the NFL's best team. I don't care. On any given Sunday, I could be the best looking man in my neighborhood. Bryce Young is back this week for the Panthers. Carolina is 5-3 against the spread this season. They will not be crushed in this one. I will take the Panthers getting 12.5 points. 49ers at Giants. Since week 3, this is the 49ers. Win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. What does that mean for this week? How stupid do I look? What do you think it means for this week? The 49ers are the better team, and the Giants lost rookie running back sensation Cam Skattebo to injury. For 49ers quarterback Mac Jones, the task is simple. Don't throw interceptions. Don't fumble the ball. Don't forget to hand it off a lot to Christian McCaffrey, and don't eat a patty melt at a Jersey diner less than an hour before kickoff. So win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. It's got to be a win for the 49ers this week. See, I figured it out. I'm going to take the 49ers as a 2.5 point favorite. Time for the beleaguered calendar game of the week. I think I've missed like 17 straight of these. The Colts at the Steelers. The Colts are 6-2 against the spread, the best in the NFL. They have a +8 turnover margin, the best in the AFC. Jonathan Taylor's rushed for 850 yards. That is the best in the league. Quarterback Daniel Jones has been good, and the Steelers' pass defense has been ungodly bad. However, despite last week's embarrassing second half against the Packers, the Steelers might surprise us, like an 80-degree December day in Minsk. What, you all don't know where Minsk is? You people disgust me. Anyway, I believe this is going the Steelers' way. I hope Aaron Rodgers can dial into his inner Buddha I think Rodgers and DJ Metcalf are going to have a really big afternoon. In fact, I believe Rodgers will play great this week, even if he wears a colander instead of a helmet. Can you smell upset in the air? I certainly can. Or is that bulgogi? I'm taking the Steelers as a 3-point underdog. I believe they win outright. Chiefs at Bills. Ooh, sends a chill down my spine. Whew. Since 2020, the Chiefs have the NFL's best record, 70-21. Since 2020, the Bills have the NFL's second best record, 66-24. This is Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. This is the favorites to meet in the AFC Championship game. Jim Nantz is going to be so excited to be at this one. It's going to feel like the Masters to him on an Augusta Sunday. I have been wrong every single time I have picked the Bills this year. The thing is, I never expect them to lose at home. It would help. It would help if they could sneak a 12th man onto their defense because the other 11 guys ain't doing the job. This game, I believe, will go to overtime, and I expect Buffalo to win it on a Freddie Freeman walk-off homer. We're going to go with the Bills again, so let's hope they don't let us down again. Please, the Bills getting 2 points against the Chiefs. Cardinals at Cowboys. Both of these teams need to be sent to a lab for further study. The Cardinals have lost 5 straight, but they actually played well against the 49ers, Seahawks, Colts, and Packers. Those are good teams. All of their losses, by the way, have been by 4 points or fewer. Meanwhile, the Cowboys have the league's best offense. Who, may you ask, has the league's second best offense? Whoever's playing the Cowboys, because their defense is so horrific, the other team just runs it up. The Cowboys are 2-0-1 this season at home, and they have scored at least 40 points in each of those games. If they score 40 again this Sunday, they should win by at least a field goal. No? yeah, like I got a clue. I'll take the Cowboys as a 3-point favorite in this one, or a 2.5-point favorite. Maybe it's 2 3/4 points. I'll have to check on that. I'll put the exact number online for you. Before we wrap up, I'm going to say this one time and one time only. Shohei Ohtani equals OMG squared. Let me show you what that looks like, okay? Shohei Ohtani equals OMG squared. He's ridiculous. Okay, in a lifetime of sports memories, though, the other night will always stand out. Game 3 of the World Series, which was an all-time classic. But I want to talk about when there was 1 out in the 7th inning. The Blue Jays were leading the Dodgers 4-3, and Shohei Ohtani was coming to bat. In his previous 6 at-bats this postseason at Dodger Stadium, Ohtani had 4 homers and 2 doubles. That's right. It's like I'm making this up, but I'm not. He was 6 for 6 in his last 6 at-bats at home in the playoffs, and that included 4 homers. So the Blue Jays decided to have a mound conference before Ohtani stepped into the batter's box. I mean, I don't know how many people can you fit into a telephone booth? I'm not sure how many people you can fit onto the pitcher's mound, but the Blue Jays appeared to put the entire team out there, plus the mayor of Toronto, plus the premier of Ontario, Canada, and Celine Dion. Okay, they caucused for about 25 minutes trying to decide how do we deal with this Ohtani fellow with no one on base and a 1-run lead in the 7th inning. The confab finally broke. Ohtani stepped into the batter's box. On the first pitch, Saran Anthony Dominguez threw him a 97-mile-per-hour 4-seam fastball, which Ohtani hit 401 feet to left center field for a game-tying homer. Sometimes you can overthink. Sometimes you can overprep. Sometimes the best laid plans of mice and men go awry. By the way, if I were facing Ohtani, okay, I might throw him an underhanded softball type of pitch And shout out, do you inhale or exhale when you swing the bat, Shohei, as the ball was approaching the batter's box? I mean, it couldn't work out much worse than it has for these other professionals. That will do it for another edition of Gambling Mad with Norm and Chad. Hope to see you again next time. And remember, if you're going to roll the dice, make sure they're loaded. I like bananas. Who doesn't like bananas? Sure, there are a lot of other sexier fruit. Blueberries, pineapples, grapes, figs, mangoes. But the banana is familiar and consistent and always tastes the same. It's easy to peel, it's got no seeds, and it has plenty of potassium and fiber. Who doesn't love fiber? The banana, in fact, has been called nature's perfect fruit. Well, here in the Lord's year 2025, if it's perfect, we can find a way to make it imperfect. I just read an article, and this reminded me why I have to stop reading, that said that banana peels can become contaminated with bacteria, pesticides, and insect eggs. And because of that, we are supposed to rinse a banana in cool water for 30 seconds, then dry it with a towel before eating it. Yes, we are supposed to wash the bananas before eating them. No, we will not. Hey, I've gone 6 decades eating bananas without a wayward thought. I've gone 6 decades eating bananas without a single bad thing happening to me. I've gone 6 decades eating bananas without wondering if I should throw them into the laundry first. So I'll be downright bloody, blasted, and blimming if I turn the simple task of consuming a banana into some banana-rama, bathe, soak, rinse, and disinfect extravaganza. It's just a goddamn banana, and these people are making me gambling mad.
Gambling Mad with Norm and Chad is written by Norm and Chad and ghost written by Norm and Chad. Executive producers are John Scheinberg and Rick Barrio-Dill. Produced by Norm and Chad and Rick Barrio-Dill. Our associate producers are Bree Khoury and Asher Friedberg, and edited by Asher Friedberg with studio facilities at 360 Pod Studios, Beverly Hills.